Okay, everybody, welcome back. So finally, we are going to talk about how mutations relate to cancer. I referred to it as the big C earlier, but it is cancer is defined by uncontrolled cell divisions. So it's a disease of multicellular organisms. If you're unicellular, you have no business doing a bunch of cellular divisions. And so, and if you did do a bunch of cellular divisions, it wouldn't kill you as an organism. You would just have a bunch of clones or offspring running around. So cancer is a disease of multicellular organisms. And like I said before, it's uncontrolled cell growth. Cell division. It's the second leading cause of death in humans worldwide. And only about 10% of all known cancers actually are inherited and come from genes with mutations that result in uncontrolled cell division. By and large, the majority of cancers develop during the lifespan of an individual and present as an adult. So 90%, most cancers are non-heritable, and that's important to keep that in mind, because there are a ton of at-home genome sequencing kits out there nowadays, and they will tell you if you have certain genes that are, if they have mutations in them, are give you a predisposition towards developing cancer potentially in your lifetime. And I think it's important for me to tell you guys right now that most of the cancers that you can get in your lifetime are not going to be because you inherited them. They're going to be from the things we've talked about so far, mutagens in the environment, or exposure to mutagens that aren't in the environment but that you unfortunately have been exposed to. So carcinogens are related to mutagens. About 80% of all of our cancers are because of exposure to a carcinogen. And a carcinogen is a type of mutagen that basically means you have a higher likelihood of developing cancer with that mutation. Okay, so carcinogens are the agents that cause those mutations, and they increase the likelihood of developing cancer. And so the difference, right, between the two is that your carcinogens specifically will lead to cancer, whereas some of your mutagens don't necessarily lead to cancer. They can lead to all kinds of other types of diseases that affect the cell or affect the organism, but it specifically doesn't lead to uncontrolled cell division. Carcinogens do. So any DNA alterations that ultimately affect cell division can ultimately can lead to cancer, Okay, so cancer originates from a single cell. It's uncontrolled cell division. So there is a mother cell you'll sometimes hear referred to that you often want to sequence. You want to find it, and then you want to sequence it to see what exactly the mutation is that is spreading throughout the tissues. The tumor is the clump of those cells that have divided and are continuing to in an unchecked fashion. Typically, so this is a cross section. I'll zoom in on these images in a second. I'll talk about the images and so the clump of cells that are present in your tissues can either be benign or they can be precancerous. If they're benign, what that means is that there's no indication that they're going to continue to divide and spread into the rest of your body and the rest of your tissues. It's just there was a period of uncontrolled cell growth, and at some point your body got a whole handle on that, and your body figured out a way to stop that uncontrolled cell division. So those are benign tumors. Malignant tumors are ones that are doing uncontrolled cell division, and they are just growing and growing and growing. And the ultimate concern is that those dividing cells will spill over into your circulatory system and travel to other parts of your body, deposit in other parts of your body, and then the tumors will start to grow in those other random places that those cells were able to migrate to. So you can get metastatic cancer throughout the body, throughout healthy tissue, because of the migration of those incorrectly dividing cells. Okay. Ultimately, if this leak goes untreated, it leads to death of the organism, because those cells are going to take up nutrients from healthy tissues, healthy cells. They're going to take up nutrients, they're going to take up proteins, they're going to just starve the system and cause all kind of other problems, because those cells are not doing the work and the jobs that they're designed to do to keep the body alive. They've completely just gone off script. Oncogenes, and this is something you'll hear about if you do these kind of at-home genome tests. Oncogenes are genes that we've identified. If you get a mutation in them, it's highly likely that your cells will undergo uncontrolled cell division, and cancer will materialize. So your oncogenes are just genes, but they're genes that if they break, it's highly likely that cancer will develop. And they typically, right, are involved in cell division, and they are a part of that, finely choreographed set of steps that regulate cell division. So basically, you don't want to break the cell division machinery, because then you have a runaway train, right? So growth factors are incredibly important component of the cell cycle, and triggering when your cell should move from one stage to another stage. We'll talk about this in another series of slides. But your growth factors, think back to when we were talking about cellular membrane communication between multiple cells, right? Ways that your cells could talk to one another are through these growth factors. They come in and they bind to your receptors on the outside of the cell, and they initiate a cascade within the cell, right? They activate specific genes within that cell, and then that will eventually, if they're activated at the proper times, that'll lead to cell division. So mutations that, affect this entire pathway, the signaling transduction pathways, especially with growth factors, produce abnormally high levels of activity, and this is what can lead to that uncontrolled cellular division. RAS is a protein that we know is involved in uncontrolled cell division if it experiences a mutation. So it's a signaling protein that breaks up GTP into GDP plus inorganic phosphate. When GTP is bound, then RAS will promote cell division, and oncogenic mutations can decrease the ability of RAS to do this step, to make GDP from plus inorganic phosphate from GTP. It can either slow it down or speed it up, and this can lock your cell into being constantly dividing, because this protein will constantly be providing, will constantly be burning up GTP and making